Yo, what up, guys? Welcome to Faded Town, number one Pokemon podcast of the world. These are facts. Look them up a book, Pokestat them, Google them, whatever you got to do. I know we've been gone for like a minute, but we're still. I think Azul's doing some podcasts. It's okay, but like, I don't know. We're still at the top. Um, we're doing the Road to Worlds kind of 4-day podcast. I'm bringing 4 Worlds players that are pretty much at the top of the game to come on, talk about the whole season and their road to Worlds and what they've been doing and how the meta is shaping up and their expectations of Worlds. And today we got Drew Bennett Kennett with us. He's took down a regional in what was it, Portland? No,
Salt Lake, Utah.
Salt Lake, and then you've been like 4 or 5 top 8s in the last year. His season's been great. We'll talk about it. But yeah, how's everything been, man?
Been pretty good. Yeah, it's been a good season. Got to play a lot of Pokemon, so it was good.
Yeah. I know. I kind of want to jump back to even like 2022 season before London, because it's been crazy. Like, we had a whole 2 years off. We didn't do nothing. And then we come into this like short season that we had in 2022. And, I personally, I'm like, all right, who do I want to work with? I personally have always loved the decks that you put out. If you don't know Drew, like, if you looked at his limit list now, you wouldn't understand how like crazy this man is. He's been one of the top players, but he's never played like meta decks. Never played meta decks, and that was like my favorite thing. If I was at a tournament, didn't know what to play, I'm gonna message Drew, or I'm gonna message someone that Drew talks to, and I'm like, hey, what do you guys play? Like, we had Aerodactyl, we've had Blissey, and the birds, like, and he does well with them all. And so going into that season, I was like, you know what, that's my time, that's my style. I want to play that. So I hit up Drew. I'm like, hey, what's the spice? And this guy hits me back with, I'm gonna play meta, and I'm gonna win. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess we're gonna do that. But like, what made your mindset change on it?
Well, so I think it was a matter of the format. I think, and the amount of people that came into the game. Playing off meta and rogue decks are excellent, and I still love playing them. But with the amount of people we have now, it's really hard to hit the right variance with a very rogue deck. There's a lot of decks right now that are excellent, and I would consider. I mean, I think we have like 6 or 7 decks that could easily win Worlds right now. And how are you going to counter all of them? Because they're all such vastly different strategies. It was kind of similar, and I mean, let's be fair. It maybe was Arceus, but Arceus Gengar was not meta. And I mean, I agree with everyone when everyone says it is the worst deck to ever win a regionals. So I'm not gonna say that deck was excellent. I just think in the break, people kind of got really attached to net decking. And Arceus Babarrel was just a broken combo. And I was the one who played Arceus Babarrel, and I played it with a partner to beat other Arceus decks. Is kind of how it was. And that's how my tournament was the entire time. Because Arceus Inteleon obviously became an excellent engine. But Arceus Babarrel as an engine, I think it actually won more regionals or more tournaments than Arceus Inteleon did. As an engine. So I think it was just the better engine. And I just happened to be the first person to kind of build it in a way that could take down an event consistently. So I would say it wasn't meta other than the Arceus factor of it. Now Arceus is still one of the best cards they've printed since Zoroark. So
yeah, I agree. And I like that mindset. I don't think people really think about it the way you just said it. It's like these rogue decks are cool, but once you get to like, there's so many more people playing, there's so many more variants of everyone's net decking, so they're playing competitive X decks. It is harder. It's harder to just take something that can't cover the spread as wide because it's so much bigger. Like, I didn't really think about it that way. I was always just like, Drew figures out a way, and I just trust him, and it usually works out. And like the Blissey thing that we did. What was it? 2018. What do you?
The last
2019 Columbus. I literally picked that deck up day of the tournament, and like I started 4-0 or 3-0, and like I would have won the fourth match, but I had the wrong Blissies. I had the 100 HP Blissies instead of 110 HP Blissies, and I was facing John Ang, and he was playing Blacephalon, so it would have cost him like a whole nother energy just to kill Chansey, and I probably would have just won that matchup. But that's just like tells you like I picked up you worked on this deck, and it was way off meta, and like no one even wasn't even thought of. And then I picked it up. I didn't even have the right cards, and I was doing super well with it. So like you're my like even like in my tips of the day that I've been doing, I literally wrote like, dude, if you're not Drew Kennett, like you should probably just play meta. Like I don't know what he does, but his mindset's so good, and he can figure it out. But for you to even say like, oh, it's a lot harder now, like guys, we probably should just still chill.
There's still a lot of good rogue deck builders right now, but I mean they're even struggling. So everyone's struggling with it right now, which is where it's too many decks right now, too many good decks, too many decks that can win the event. And the best engines are just pretty dominant right now in Lost Box, Guardy, Lugia. They're just so good. It's hard to beat them all.
It's crazy. So let's just talk about the season. We finished Worlds. You didn't have the best Worlds. We start the next season off. We don't get local play, but we get a bunch of regionals. And we start right off the bat. You jump into Baltimore, and you're on Reggie's. Like, where's the mind? Is that the I want to play a little rogue off? Because like I think Reggie's at that point wasn't like, oh, super meta. Like this deck is super broken. Like
absolutely
it was
not.
yeah. Like people weren't playing it. People thought it was a joke, and then you come in and you take third at the tournament. Like where was your mindset on that?
Yeah, so I wasn't going to play Reggie's, and then I kind of just woke up the morning of the event before I had to submit a deck list, and I had Reggie's built. I had it. I was in my back pocket. But I woke up and I was like, I'm going to a lot of regionals this year. This is the first one. Let's start out with some fun. I wasn't concerned about getting my invite. It's not something that I'm really concerned about ever getting. I go to enough events and I perform well enough to get my invite. So that's something that doesn't loom in my mind that maybe looms in a lot of people's minds. So I have that privilege there. So I was like, let's have some fun. And then it turns out Reggie's was just the play for the event, and it was extremely good. Put Reggie's on the map, and then Reggie just got more and more popular after that.
Yeah, it was pretty nuts because I mean, you went to tear with Reggie's. You literally went 1, 2, 3, 5 straight events with Reggie's. Placing top 50. I mean, the highest placing you had was 42 at Peoria with Reggie's. Like during that time,
that was a mirror, a lot of mirrors in that one too, because everyone was playing Reggie's in that one.
Yeah, because that usually happens if someone does really well with a like off kind of meta deck. The next tournament, everybody's like, "Oh, this is good. I'm gonna play it. It's fun. Let's do it." So that makes sense. But then you go straight back into a top 8 at Salt Lake. Then you probably barely bubble out in San Diego, and then I think it teeters out in Vancouver. But Reggie's got you pretty much easily got you your invite.
Oh yeah, I got my invite with Reggie's after the first few tournaments. Yeah,
that's what I thought. So. Was Reggie? Did you just stick with Reggie's because you thought it was the best, or you were just having so much fun and you were performing well? Like we're sticking. I'm just gonna play Reggie's.
I think Reggie's was absolutely one of the best decks in the format, especially with how the format was shifting. It was good against Lost Box. It was good against Lost Zone decks when that Lost Zone came out. When I don't even know the set name. Yeah. When the Lost Zone set came out, it was good against them. It was good against Tina. And then when Lugia came out, it's a good matchup versus Lugia. It started off a little bit weird, but once the matchup got figured out, it was pretty favorable for Reggie's. So it was just good into these dominant decks. I never thought it was unbeatable. It was always just one of those, if people came with the right techs, the right 2 cards tech against me, I just lose. And I just accepted that because once again, we've had this format all year where there's a lot of good decks. A lot of good decks, of course. During the Lugia phase, it was play Lugia. It was actually broken. But for the most part, we've had a lot of different decks that could take down a tournament. So for me, instead of switching it up every time, I was like, I know Reggie's, I'm going to stick with it. And that's what I did. And it performed well. It got me my invite. So I was happy with it.
Right. I've been preaching that. I think if you look at a lot of top players' limitlesses, that it kind of looks like yours, where they pick a deck that is very powerful and they understand really well, and they just start doing really well event after event after event until we have like a rotation, which you can pretty much see where the rotation happened, and then you jump on the Lugia train, and that's where we sat. And
then I play 4 different decks.
yeah, which is fine. Let's talk about Lugia when it was at its peak. What was your mindset on that? Like, I feel like a lot of people hated it. Like, okay, because we are looking at tournaments where we're like 60-70% Lugia, and it was just like how do you feel about when metas do shift that hard?
I don't mind it. I mean, that's part of playing card games. The meta is always going to change whether you enjoy the meta you're in right now or whether you don't. It is the meta. It is what it is. No amount of complaining is going to change that. And that's something that I think a lot of people need to figure out is stop complaining, oh, this is boring, I don't like this. There are a lot of decks. Find one that you enjoy because you will enjoy it even if you think you don't. Give it a shot. And that's something that a lot of people need to figure out. Because I've been playing this game for almost 20 years now. So I have been through quite a few different metas. Some I've enjoyed, some I haven't, some I've loved, some I haven't. Right? So this meta, I'm not crazy about, but it's not going to stop me from trying to win. And all I have to do is adapt and be able to enjoy playing one of the better decks in the format. So which just comes down to playing it a lot and grinding it out until I do enjoy it, because that's how I start to enjoy a deck, is when I play it to the best of its ability and that I'm not making mistakes, because mistakes cause you to lose. Losing isn't fun. So that's how I see it. So that's why I was kind of playing after the rotation Lugia, Gardevoir, just playing these top tier decks to kind of get the hang of them to get ready for NAIC and Worlds that are the bigger events that are happening.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think a lot of people, I mean, especially if you stay on Twitter or that, it's just a cesspool of like, oh, this meta sucks. I don't like this. I don't like that. But at the end of the day, we all keep playing, and the meta shifts, and that's just how it is. Like, you just got to get through stuff you don't like, move on. But you're right. Usually, you can find something that's good that you enjoy playing, and like just stick with that. I'm all for that. Let's talk about going into NAIC, because it was the same meta that we're going to see in Worlds. Do you feel that impacted the meta at all? Do you feel that people held stuff back because they don't want to reveal it going into Worlds, or do you feel everybody was there to win that event no matter what, and they were playing the best deck that they could possible?
No, I think everyone was there to win the event. I don't think anyone. If there was someone out there who held back their secret deck so that they could win Worlds, I'm just going to say it. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. Okay. No, everyone is there to win the largest event that Pokemon has ever had with a giant prize pool. Like, no one held back. And if they did, and then they lose World, they're going to even feel even worse, right? So I think it's kind of crazy to hold back. What I do think is that we have had a lot more time now. After NAIC, it's been a few weeks. A lot of people have been brewing, testing, formats changing. We have a lot of online tournaments that happen, which impacts the meta one way or the other. But I do think everyone played their best option at NAIC. Do I think there might be some stuff that pops up at World? Yes. Do I think it's going to be very good? Probably not. I don't think. Okay, so good. It's not going to be better than the options we already have. is what
Okay.
I'm going to say. Personally, what I've been saying about this meta is we're in a meta where there's 6 to 8 decks that I think could go 9-0 in an event, and that I think can go 0-9 in an event. I
Okay.
think they are all very close right now. I don't think there's a clear best deck in format. I think it's close between a couple. But I think that with just your day on the cards or your matchups, you're going to be able to go 9-0 or 0-9. It's one of those formats, so that's where it's kind of like play the best deck. I've tested a lot of rogue decks for Worlds, and just none of them could consistently do what it needed to do.
That's fair. Like, because when we look at NAIC, I mean, it was, I wouldn't say it was like the biggest road deck, but like, how many people really thought that Rapid Strike was going to win that event?
It
I
was
know
the
a lot
second deck I had.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me. When it comes to you, that makes sense because
Yeah. I mean, if you look at Cyrus's tournament, they had a very solid matchup spread
Yeah.
throughout the event. I don't remember exactly how many Mews they played, but not very many. And same with Lugia.
Yeah.
They just didn't play a lot of those, which makes that deck perform extremely well.
Yeah, like when I watched I think it was like top 8 and finals, like made it look so easy. Like they looked so free. The deck looked amazing. But I've talked to a lot of players that have tried that deck. That like Rahul's gone to like 2 tournaments and just bombed with that deck, and like
I played at EUIC.
okay, don't see. That's what I'm
I
saying.
played
Like
against 2 Lugias in the first 4 rounds, and I was out of the event. Like that's how it is.
Yeah, that's tough. But do you think something like that we haven't seen could potentially be at Worlds, or do you think pretty much any deck has been at least seen?
I think if there's going to be a deck that we haven't seen, it's going to be Arceus.
Okay.
It is going to be
Arceus plus
so we will
something?
have seen Arceus plus something.
Okay.
I think is from my testing, it is the only way I have found to make any sort of thing like that work.
Okay.
Consistently against the meta is you just need Arceus because it's that good of a card to make the rest of your engine flow. So I don't know what it would be personally, because I've tried a lot of them. But hey, maybe someone was able to make the Arceus Rayquaza VMAX deck work or something.
There we go. There we go. Right.
Okay. That deck is
That's what
that deck is borderline good, so maybe someone was able to
really.
make it. Yeah, it was.
I haven't even
actually
seen it.
Yeah,
That's
it
wild.
popped up a couple weeks ago in some online events.
Okay.
It had some good results, but the best part about it is you get, even if you miss an energy attachment, you can attack with Arceus turn 2 because of Armor Rouge, letting you move like Magma Basin, Armor Rouge, letting you move energies around. So it's a good deck, but is it amazing? I don't think so.
I don't know. That's wild. That'd be so fun to watch, actually. That's what I'm hoping for. Like, I get it. The meta is very vast. Like, we have a lot of good decks, but it's always fun to see the one that's just like, oh, that dude's playing Rayquaza. Like, no one else is playing. He's doing, what is he, 7-0? Like, those storylines are so much more fun to watch. I really hope something like that happens.
I think what you'll probably see is a lot of people having different techs in their deck more than whole decks that are different.
I was gonna ask you about text wise because I find myself doing this a lot, and I know it's not. I know the answer is no, but like I sometimes like grab a meta deck, and then I'm like, you know what? It would be really cool. The deck would be so much more fun if I play X card. If I put this card in here, even though like I know it's probably not the most optimal, but like if I put I don't know, I can't even think of like text right now because the mess is weird, but like just throwing, oh, this is just different, like these let me put these 3 cards in it makes the deck more different, more fun. Does that ever go through your mind anymore? I know you're on this like kick of like I want to be the best, but like do tech cards affect the way like you pick your deck?
Yeah, so my deck building has shifted. My meta deck building, because it is different now that I'm playing a lot more meta decks, has shifted to I have X spots in my deck 2, 3, however many I can fit without messing up the core of the deck.
Okay.
And those are for whatever text I want them to be.
Okay. I like that. I like that.
Like, I enjoy playing something weird as well. I'm not, even though I'm playing meta, I'm not going to ever be net decking. There are always going to be a few cards different that I think is going to make the deck a little bit better. So that's how I see it, and that's kind of how I've been going about it. Having a couple cards different in my Lugia, a couple cards different in my Lost Box, a couple cards different in my Guardy. Like, I like having a little bit different.
I'm with you on that. That's my mindset. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna play some crazy card here. That, like, hey, this works really well in this matchup. I think if I get in this card in this matchup, it works. Does it help me in any other matchup? No. But that guy's not gonna see it coming. All right, I got this. You know, that's the mindset, and it just changes things up. I feel like, especially when you pull it off, like, it feels really good. And I think, like, it helps, like, in the middle of a tournament where, like, all right, maybe you are struggling, maybe you're like, you lost last round, but in the next round you pull off that play that with that tech card that you put in, it's like, oh, I think that just boosts you so much more. Like, okay, my mindset's way better now. I just won with the card that I chose to put in. I didn't net deck this. I put this in. Everybody said this card was not that great, and it got me a victory. Like, I think that propels you a lot further than just like, oh, I used Sam Chen's list and it got me there. But
exactly. But hey, I mean, a lot of people who are playing the game now haven't been experiencing the deck building aspect of it for a long time. So those net decks, I mean, if you feel that's the best you can do with the deck, do it. But for me personally, it's not how I like to do my tournaments.
Yeah, I agree. I've been putting on tips every day, which has been kind of weird, but it's just caught fire. And like, I always like, my tips are usually for like newer players or people that are kind of in the same shoes as me that are just like trying to get an invite. And like, my best advice is like, there's so many, like when we used to play in 2015, 2016, like you really didn't have the type of resources that we have nowadays. Like Limitless by itself, just being on that website makes you a better player. Like if you just pull in all that information, you literally, like, all this work is done for you that like we used to have to do for ourselves. So like for me to just like tell you not to use it would be crazy. Like if you're new, just jump on there. You at least get a good deck. Like you automatically get a core of something that has potentially done really well at a tournament. And like we didn't even have that back in the day. I remember my first tournament, we were in Arizona, and like it was Virizion Genesect and Mega Manectric came out. I just like smashed it together and I threw a Dragonite in there, and like I had no guidance, and I was literally, I started like 5-0 or something, and then I lost my win we went straight to top 8 back then. I lost to Kenny Britton, or Kenny Britton's sister,
Christy
Britton, and she was playing Seismitoad, and like I should never lost that matchup, but like I never played. I don't really play the matchup. We didn't have the resources back then. Like we just played with our friends with whatever they had, and he was probably playing the same stupid smashed up deck I was playing. So like we didn't play matchups. We didn't know anything, and it's so crazy how far the game has come. Like your average player can become really good really fast, and it's really cool to see that. So let's jump into Worlds now. NAIC ends. Where's your mindset? Once like you see the results, you see the decks that have done well. You got a little less than a month to go. I know everybody's hyped for Japan. Like the trip is that might go over people's heads. There might be a lot of people are really happy just to make it. You know, I don't think you're that type of person. I think you're going there to win. I get Japan's probably really exciting, but I have a feeling that you've been working really hard to win this event. Am I right here?
I started to. I took a break after NAIC though. I just took a week off.
That's fine.
Not much changed at NAIC. I felt like the meta was very predictable. I think the decks that won pretty predictable that they would win in that type of field. So not much changed. And I had already tested for NAIC, and the fact that we have the same format, not too much happening. So I think I took like 4 or 5 days off of just not worrying about Pokemon, not thinking about it, focused on going to the gym and just just resetting my mindset for Worlds. And then I went to each day testing a different rogue deck. Because I wanted to try to find a rogue deck. I just did. So I went for a solid. I tested. Oh my! There were some days I tested 2 because they were that bad, or even 3. Right. So I think I went through a solid like 15, maybe 15 to 20 random ideas I had that were so bad it was ridiculous. And then I was like, okay, no more of this. We're done. We're back to meta. We got to figure out what some meta decks are. Maybe I have a couple Arceus decks that might do well. They ended up losing out, but then I just started grinding out meta, trying to figure out what the best techs are, and then which one kind of just has the best matchup spread right now. I think the only thing that's really changed from NAIC is that Lost Tina is going to be way more popular than it was at NAIC. I think that was the deck that was undervalued in that event. If I tested that deck more for NAIC, I think there's a chance I probably would have played it. But I think that deck was very undervalued in the whole event. I mean, Kyle Sablehouse did excellent with the deck. It hasn't played Pokemon in a while. Picked up Lost Tina, and at NAIC gets top 64 with it. Just has an amazing tournament. So that shows how good the deck can be in the hands of an excellent player. And I think the reason it was undervalued is not a lot of people played it at NAIC. Not a lot of top players played it, which caused it so the variance of the deck to be down. But if it had the same percentage as Guardy in that event, it would have won the tournament. No doubt about that. There would have been too much of it. It would have overwhelmed all these rogue decks, these Arceus Umbreon decks, or this Urshifu Inteleon deck. It would have overwhelmed those decks. And because it wasn't as big of a percentage there, it didn't. So I think that's going to be something we see change there.
That's good. Yeah, I agree. Like, I think Arctina, or like, I was gonna ask you about that. Like, I think they're like, we have the Guardies, we have your off meta stuff, and I think like the two main big engines are Arceus and Lost Zone. Because like you could do Arceus Tina, you can do Lost Zone Tina. Like, where's your mindset on that? Are you siding with the Lost Zone side, just drawing better cards, or yeah? That's why
I think the Lost Zone's way better.
Yeah, like what?
Well,
I gotta no, go ahead.
I was going to say the differences between them is that Arc Tina is linear, does one thing: hope you win with Path of the Peak. Like that's what that deck does. But then Lost Tina is you're doing a lot of actions, you have a lot of decisions to make. Yes, Lost Tina typically wins a lot of their games by Roxanne Path, but I think Roxanne Path is a much higher chance of winning than Iono or Judge Path turn 1. I think Roxanne Path at the end of the game, while you are incrementally adding damage with Sableye, chipping away things and taking prizes with Cramorant, things like that, while you're creating a board state where the end of the game you can be at 3 or 4 prizes while your opponent's at 2, and then you can stick a Roxanne Path, and yeah, you need them to dead draw for a turn or 2, but a lot of decks in this format do. Babarrel just isn't a very good engine right now. I don't think it is. So it makes it so a lot of decks can't really beat that type of strategy when you're able to keep up with them all game. And Tina's usually a turn or 2 behind just because it's a little bit slower than other Lost Zone decks. But I still think that the power of just destroying Arceus decks in general, as well as the Roxanne Path, is just such a good combo right now that's why I like it way more.
That's fair. I feel like there was like a mindset of we are going to start playing Arceus because it beats Lost Zone that doesn't play like Tina or something that can deal with like 280 HP. And that's like I was talking to Sosa about it. He's like, oh, I'm playing a lot. I'm like, dude, didn't everybody start playing Arceus because it beats Last Zone, and he's like, I don't know, I beat Last Zone, I beat Arceus every time. I'm like, all right, maybe it's because you're playing Tina. Like Tina just does 280, just does 280. It's just, all right. Yeah. It makes more sense because I think a lot of people are shying away from Tina because the two prize, giving up two prizes, like, but we're in like a weird meta where we have three prizes, we have two prize Pokemon, the one prizers. Like I don't know if I'd shy to a one prize deck just because. Like, does that factor with you too? Time management when it comes to just playing a single prize deck? Like,
no. I don't.
You...
Time management's dumb. Just win your games.
All right. I like that mindset. There you go.
Here, I mean, win your games, play at your pace. That's how I see it. Like, my goal every event is to go 18-0. Right? I'm not trying to lose a game. So if I'm playing a deck specifically because I think I'm going to lose one game every match, that's actually not good win percentage. If you're losing one game, you may win the matches, but if you are losing one game every match, that's not a good win percentage to the point where if variance is slightly off for you, then you probably aren't doing well in the event. So, I mean, my goal is to always go 2-0 every round. If I lose a game, then it is what it is, right? Chances are we're going to end up tying because I'm not going to lose two games because that's definitely not something I ever plan on doing. But if I lose one, okay, then chances are I'm going to tie, have to reevaluate, right? Because we are in a format where finishing 3 games is just about impossible. No matter what deck you're playing. I really don't think maybe Urshifu and Teleon always gets 3 games done because it is just a 3 prizes that goes boom boom. There's just too many actions right now, and if one person doesn't want to finish the match will not finish.
Okay, I was gonna ask you about that because I think that came up a lot on Twitter in the last like month or so, where even Azul said something along the lines of like he wouldn't scoop a match up, and even if he had game, and like he wouldn't end a match even if he had game in hand, because he would force his opponent to either scoop or make a comeback, because wasting that, I don't know if he exactly said this, but he insinuated that like it's not his like he doesn't have to finish a game if he doesn't want to. Like
yeah, and the whole idea of, I didn't see I had game is kind of a thing. I mean, I think that is a very fine line of spirit of the game to not win. It's kind of you can always play it off of intent. Like, I didn't know I had game. How do you know that I knew I had game? I missed it. People misplay all the time, right?
Or, the one thing he brought up was like, I want to play longer to see what cards are in my opponent's deck.
Yeah,
I think there's always some type of like reasoning behind it you can come up with, but I'm kind of still in the same boat as you. As like, I don't. It's pretty.
It's true. Yeah, I mean, you can see what's in your opponent's deck, but if you are in such a dominating position that you can avoid winning the game because you want to see more of their deck, how much is that actually going to impact that? Probably not a lot. However, I do agree with Azul in the aspect of if you are in that bad of a position that they cannot beat you because they feel like they are in an unlosable position, you have to be able to scoop that. I agree with that as well. So there's definitely, I don't think it should be done. I don't think you should hold off on winning just to see more cards in your opponent's hand, or what we know the real reason is make sure make sure the time goes down a little bit. I don't think it should be done. I don't like when people do that. I don't even gentlemen's because I hate the time rules. Like, I hate all that stuff. I don't wear a watch. I'd never know how much time is left in the round. It's bit me in the butt a few times. But also, get better at scooping, guys. Really. Like, honestly. Like, get better at scooping. I played Guardy at NAIC, and I was in Game 3 with 35 minutes left in the round 4 times.
See,
Like,
I'm with it.
just
I'm a big scooper too. I'm a big like, hey, if the game one just doesn't look good, like I want to play. I'm gonna try to play 2 full games. So I
Right.
usually scoop that early. Like I think my mindset of scooping changes every game. It goes from like game one, if it's really bad, like if it's just, you could kind of play out the turns in your hand and go, oh, this could be close, or like the odds of me winning is not very good. Scoop, let's try again. And then game two, like if I'm down a game, like obviously I'm not scooping. I'm just gonna play it out. And then game three, if I win, obviously I'm not scooping. Like I'm gonna play out the whole thing. But game one, I think my scooping, like it's very like it could happen very quickly because you, like you said, it's very hard to get through 3 games in the meta right now.
Like I said, I want to go 18-0 in tournaments and win every game, every round, but I know when I'm not. So don't be married to it. You'd rather get that extra game to try to win. Ties aren't good. Ties are not good. You want the win. Take the win or take the loss. One of those will just make you happier.
Right.
The idea of going 504 in an event is very, very difficult. I went 504 when I played Lugia this season, and it was awful. I was kind of in the moment of just, I wish one of these ties was a loss.
Right.
Like it was not enjoyable, and it doesn't happen often. It was really, really hard to go 504. I'm not gonna lie to you. I had to really grind to win some of those games.
I think it becomes more nerve wracking, especially. I think there's a lot of people that think that some top players play that type of style where they don't want to lose, so they're okay with tying. Like if they can go 504 and not get one loss and manage the clock well enough to do sorts of stuff like that, I feel like there's a lot of mindset of like some top players do playing like that. But like I said, or like you said, it's a super grindy. Like it's not something you can just like, oh, I'm gonna guarantee myself not to lose a matchup. Like if I just play slow, because you still have to get the one win. I guess if you get the one win, the first win, you could play like that. But that's like trying to guarantee yourself a first win every time, which is just like not a thing.
And that's kind of what I was saying about if one person doesn't want the match to finish, it won't. Usually it's the person who won game one.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they win game one, they are guaranteed a tie. Right? Yep. Like they're guaranteed a tie. Best case is they get the win. Depending, of course, on how long that first game took. Right? If it was a 4-minute game, 5-minute game, it was a donk or something. Obviously, there's plenty of time to finish. Right? Or there was a scoop. But that whoever wins the first game gets to dictate if it's a win for them or if it's a tie. Okay. And that's an issue with where we're at right now in a format with so many interactions and so many moves that are happening every single turn. Because there's just a lot of things happening in turns. I don't even think there's a lot of people slow playing initially that game one. I think the slow playing happens later in the match, right? But initially game one, Lost Box just has really long turns. Guardy has really long turns, and they're one prize decks. So you have to take 6 knockouts. Not easy.
Yeah, it's super rough. And I think you're right. And I think you're right by telling everyone they got to learn to scoop. Because by scooping that game one early, you kind of take that out of their hands. Like they can't just force you into a tie or them a win. They have to play 2 games basically. So yeah, I think that works. But let's talk about your preparation for Worlds. Is it just are you playing limitless tournaments? Are you just grinding the ladder? Or do you have some testing buddies? Or like how's this going?
I've just been playing against myself.
Okay.
I play both decks, set them up on a table, and I just play both sides of the matchup. It makes it so I actually learn 2 matchups at the same time. Because I'm physically the one playing it, and because I'm not biased towards one deck over the other, I just play them how I would play them. So that's how I have been doing it. It's been pretty good. I of course like playing against other people. But I think that just playing as myself, like I said, I get both sides of every matchup. So I'm kind of just cutting my testing time in half, which has been really nice.
That's really good. I don't think anyone's really brought something up like that. Uh, a lot of times people just focus like, oh, play a lot of Limitless, grind a ladder, do this. But
Mhm.
I mean, if you're really good at this game, why not play against yourself? Like you know you're gonna win the matchups. You know that you're gonna play it as optimal as possible. Yeah, I think that's really good. I like that idea. That's
Yeah.
something. I don't know if everybody could do that, but that's definitely something new. That's what's up.
It's good to
Uh,
do. I mean, if you even if you're not really good at it, like as long as you can be critical of yourself, which is the one of the biggest things about getting better, is understanding that you aren't perfect at the game. That you can still make misplays. I still make misplays. All the top players still make misplays. Like it happens. So just accepting that you aren't perfect, putting your pride aside, and actually figuring out how you can get better is a big thing. So when you get to play both sides of a matchup, if you can be critical of yourself about it and just kind of think about it, about what you could have done better to try to make it so the matchup was a little bit more favorable or that you were in a better position later in the game. That's what you have to do. And I think when people start doing that, they'll also stop complaining about these outside factors of time and matchups and all this stuff where, yeah, those play a little bit of a factor, but the majority of what makes it if you win or lose a round is what happens while you are playing. So figure out how to do that better. That's what you
yeah,
have to do. No more complaining about things. Just figure out how to be better. Be
I
critical of
agree.
yourself.
I think in the last like few tournaments, because I haven't been playing a lot, and so I played in a few tournaments. I played up this 3K the other week, and just being more critical on myself. Like I know when I'm looking at my cards and I don't know what I should do, like that's a problem. Like
Yeah.
that's a problem. I'm like I have cards and I don't know what the optimal play is, and it had nothing to do with anything outside of anything but myself. Like I should have put in more time. I should know these matchups. I should know what to do. And I think being more critical on that, like I could end the matchup and go, I drew bad, or like, but deep down I know I looked at a handful of cards and didn't know what to do. So like
Right.
that's the core of the problem, and you're right. You just have to be better. Like I know that sounds like a
Sounds harsh, but
it sounds harsh.
it's actually just true.
Yeah, because like people always say like, oh, there's RNG and there's this and that, but if you look at who's at the top every week, it's like, I mean, every tournament, it's consistently these players that are winning. So like you said, those things do factor in, but at the end of the day, making the right play is really what wins you the game. Knowing what to do in a situation really what wins you the game. And like I know people are gonna be like, well, those top players are cheaters or blah blah. Like eventually you just can't have that mindset. You gotta get over yourself. They're putting in the work. They know how to do these matchups, and like that's just it. So
Yeah, and to make it very clear, I'm talking from a you want to compete at the highest level mindset. I want to be one of the top players. I want to play in the world championships. I want to do well in the world championships. But if you are of the mindset of you solely love this game for the fun of it, then you don't have to be critical of yourself. Just enjoy what you're doing.
That's true.
I want to make sure there is a very clear difference between those two things. This game is ultimately for fun, whether it's fun because you enjoy playing Pokemon or fun because you enjoy winning. Those are different things. And so if you are just in the aspect of loving Pokemon and don't care all that much about the competitive, you want to be the regional champion, the world champion, like then just enjoy it. Don't be too critical on yourself. Have a good time, play the decks you want to play with your friends, have fun. But if you are wanting to be competitive, you have to be critical and understand that you did not play every single game of the event perfectly. You didn't.
I think that's such a good thing. I don't think that's ever talked about. I think a lot of content that's put out is very competitive, and people are always riding this competitive ride. But there is another aspect to this game where this isn't like a pro league. This isn't like the best players in the world playing against each other. Like it doesn't you don't play against Azul every tournament, you know? So like there's a whole nother aspect to this game where there are just a lot of people that are just having fun, and that's fine. And I don't think that's talked about a lot. I think a lot of people taking all this information and are like, oh, I have to play like competitively, but like you said, like if you're just fine with playing, you're playing for fun. That is part of the game as well. Like, just you don't have to overthink it. You don't have to be critical on yourself. Just play whatever you want to play, have fun, move on with the game. Like, I think a lot of people do have that mindset of everything has to be competitive, everything has to be great, and like that was a good point. I don't think people talk about that enough. Where this isn't like, sure, we talk about it being a full season, your road to worlds, blah blah blah, but it's not really like that. This isn't a pro league. The best players in the world don't play against each other every tournament. Like, you just never know. So yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. But let's talk about it. When we look at worlds, do you think a well-known player is gonna pull this off? Do you think these testing groups? Because like you said, you're sitting here playing by yourself, you're testing by yourself, you're doing this, and then you have people like Bradner and their group, and they're gonna sit in boot camp for a week somewhere and do that. What do you think the benefits of each? Like, do you think someone that's just solo dolo like you, or a guy who just like I lucked into my world invite, I'm just here to be happy, I'm happy that I'm going. Like, what do you think the average of like someone that's working with a group and someone that's just happy to be there, like, what's the advantage? Do you think the advantage is so much higher for someone that's putting like crazy amount of work like that and someone that's just like happy to be there?
No, I don't think so. I think it's the amount of work. So I think the difference between those two is actually the skill cap of the players. So a big group of people who all are very top level players. They are all top 16, right? They're multiple regional champions, whatever it might be. Those groups with multiples of those, they can kind of do what an individual can do in a quarter of the time. So they have more time to kind of maximize their decks, is how I see it. So I've tested with big groups of all excellent players. I've tested alone, like I have for this event. And when I have a big group of people who are all excellent at playing the game and are all top players, we kind of get things done quicker. Deck ideas and techs and stuff go through the chute real fast. Like, someone picks it up, they play 10 games with it, they let us know, yeah, it's awful, don't play this, we're done with this, right? And we trust them because we know that they are an excellent player. When you're playing alone, you obviously have less resources to be able to get that through the chute faster. So for me, I had to test each one of those decks by myself multiple times. I was only able to do 1 or 2 decks a day. If I have 5 people or 6 people in my group, well, we can test 3 different decks, 3 different rogue decks against 3 different meta decks in one sitting. So I think that's the difference. Not necessarily one's harder than the other, but for the individual, I think it has to become, you need to pick what deck you want to play quicker than a big group. The big groups can pick last second. They are able to pick whatever deck they want to play last second. If you are the individual, figure out what deck you want to play earlier so that you can get perfect with that deck and become the best with that deck. Because I don't care if it's a big group or the individual. Whoever's playing their deck the best will end up winning the event. More times than not, right?
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. Like, because a lot of people out here are always like, "Oh, I don't have a testing group. I don't have like, what do I do?" Like, like you said, they can weed out like good and bad decks and techs and stuff very quickly because they got a 5-6 man roster of people they really trust on this stuff. And I'm over here and I don't have any friends. I don't have this. But like you said, just pick something early and just stick with it and get really good at that one deck, and you're gonna be able to compete with that. I think that's definitely the mindset people need to have. I've been preaching that, but I don't think I put it in that like light like you put it in. Like you might not have the resources, but you still can compete with them. You just have to approach it in a different way, which is really good.
Being efficient. Be efficient with what you have to work with, and get off Twitter and stop complaining. I'm sorry. I'm so sick of Twitter complaints. If you can't tell by this.
No. I mean, I've been on there. I don't know. I kind of just post my one thing a day and try not to look at it, but because it does. I mean, it gets toxic. It gets crazy. I think. I mean, I don't really want to get into it, but you're right. Like, those complainings aren't helping. Like, if you want to be good at the game, do what you said. Just either find a testing group and work through it, or hey, pick a deck early, get really good at the one deck. You can compete as well.
Yeah, put up results, and then you can start talking to players who you meet in day 2, right? Exactly. Who are also players who are being successful. And yeah, it may not be you may not be in one of the top testing groups, but it doesn't mean you can't have a group of people that are all successful at the game that can do well.
Yeah, I think that was like one thing with me. I didn't know anybody, but then I start going to events. Oh, dude, he made day 2. He got third. Like, then people are like, all right, he might be like, well, like I see him at every event now. Like, let's talk to him. And then that just streamlined. Like, obviously the podcast helped a lot too. Like, I bring people on, they talk to me, and then I can reach out to you guys and stuff like that. But it all starts with like proving to everyone that you're gonna, especially if you want to be very competitive, like proving to everyone you're gonna show up to these events and you're putting in the work. Like, you're like, no one's gonna listen to you if you're just like, oh, I'm less like, sure, they're gonna be like, oh, hey, how's it? Like, everyone's pretty nice, but if you want like, hey, let's bounce some ideas off each other, people got to know that like you're taking this serious. You're consistently gonna like come close to making day 2 or making day 2s, or you're doing really well at a tournament. So I think people don't realize like that's all it takes is like people are gonna start recognizing you if you're going to every event and you're doing this. And like I think there's a few players even like this year like we didn't even know like before, and they just start doing really well every tournament. It's like, oh, all right, like this guy's really good. He probably knows what he's talking about. It's easier to make like these type of connections and get like a good testing group when you start actually going to events and putting in the work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, let's wrap this one up with just some predictions. Like, what do you think the top 8 looks like? Do we just have like a Guardy? Is Guardy the deck? Is Lost Zone just gonna dominate, or do we have like a resurgence of Lugia?
I think so. Starting with my tournament run, I think I will play against 6 different decks in day 1 of Worlds. I don't think I'll have any duplicates. And I think that top 8 is going to look very similar. I think that there may be 2 Arceus decks. There may be 2 Lost Box. There may be 2 Guardies. And then maybe a Shen Pao makes it in there, right? Okay. Or maybe a Tina makes it in there. I think we're going to see a lot of variety this year.
Big variety. All right.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be dominated by any one deck.
Okay. Yeah, I think NAIC kind of showed that there wasn't like we didn't see any dominance, and hopefully we see. I like that. I want to see more variety. That's cool.
Yeah.
I'm kind of with you. I mean, I haven't been playing a lot, but for what it looks like even if you just pull up like one limitless tournament, like the top 20 decks there's like 7 or 8 different decks every time. So it's a cool meta. I'm excited for that.
Yeah, it should be fun. We won't have to see Lugia mirror matches constantly on stream, so it'll be nice.
Yeah.
It'll be a good one to watch this year, actually.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope the production, I hope everything looks good. It's in Japan. It should be super hype. Do you know what day it actually starts for NA?
So it starts 9:30 a.m. Friday in Japan, and Japan is 16 hours ahead of us. So that means
Yes.
it's 3 p.m. for our time zone,
Uh,
which
so
is 6 p.m.
Thursday.
Eastern. Yeah, 6
Yeah.
p.m.
So
Thursday Eastern, I believe, is when
Thursday
it starts.
Eastern. Okay. That's what
And
I
I
was saying. I
might be
know it's
wrong
like a
an
whole
hour or
day.
so, but I think it's
Yeah, yeah. It's something around there. I know
yeah.
so it's like Thursday. Thursday is when it's gonna start for us.
Yep.
All right, cool. Well, I
Thursday
appreciate
before you
you.
go to bed.
Right? I appreciate you coming on, Drew. I wish you all the luck, man. You know I'm cheering for you. I think you put in the most work. I mean, you put in a crazy amount of work, which is great, and I just want you to see you do really well at one of these internationals, one of these worlds. Yeah. Any last words for anyone that's like inspiring to be one of these top players playing our worlds?
Enjoy the game. Enjoy the game you're playing. If you're not
Yeah.
enjoying it, take a break. You don't have to go to every tournament. If you don't enjoy the format where we're at, wait for the next set. Just don't
It's
don't
not easy.
don't waste your money going to these events if you're not going to have a good time, because if you're not having a good time, you're not going to do well. Really what
Right.
it is. Enjoy the
Awesome.
game. Enjoy the game. The results will come.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you again. Other than that, guys, tune in tomorrow for our next podcast. We're going to have 4 top players in a row leading up right into probably Thursday at 3 o'clock when the world starts, and we all can just sit there and hopefully cheer on these 4 players and to do well. All right. But for now, guys, we're going to scoop it up.